cybersecurity industry has been really booming. And the reason for that is because hackers on the other side of the fence are just loading every type of business and every individual with horrible stuff and attacking everybody. There's literally not a single person on this planet that is currently not under attack, unless if they're completely disengaged and disconnected from the internet.
Hey everybody, Andrew here of Digital Nomad Journey, where we support digital nomads and remote workers seeking the laptop lifestyle. I'm super pumped to see you here for this one because we have a cybersecurity expert that's dropping some serious insights. If you want to be a remote worker in 2020 or beyond, then it's time to take this stuff seriously. You want to hope for the best, but plan for the worst, because those hackers, they're going to hack. So leave your questions in the comments below and hit that like button to support the channel. Thanks.
Right on, Omer. Thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Nomad Journey. I actually love using analogies and a certain mindset when I talk to people who are brand new remote workers or brand new digital nomads. I like to say that electricity is our heartbeat. I like to say the internet is our lifeblood. And if you want to follow the same mindset, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that cybersecurity or protecting yourself from hackers, that might be more of like your immune system. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Good way of looking at it, for sure.
Perfect. That's how I'm going to look at it. So let's dive right into the questions here. So why don't you just take us right back to the very beginning? Why did you get into cybersecurity? How did you find yourself on that path? What were your first steps?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've been doing IT consulting for quite some time. It's been just over 12 years, and computers and IT has always been, a part of me from day one. And I won't get too far back and go into my childhood, but over the last 12 years, it's been a lot of IT consulting, helping small businesses, helping entrepreneurs get up and running, operational and secure as well. So security wasn't always top of mind for me. It wasn't really the focus for quite some time. The industry, the world that we live in has changed a lot over the last few years. So that has a lot to do with where I am today. But originally, it's been kind of me on my own, doing IT consulting, a one-man shop, doing some subcontracting here and there, and but for the most part, it was just me working crazy hours, 13, 14, 15-hour days, like any entrepreneur that's starting off, and you got to pay your dues at the beginning, right? So I did a lot of that. Obviously, I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, and everything around that as well. So it was feasible for some time, and so I was grinding for many years, and I'm still working really hard. But long story short, over the last 7 years, I started another company called Tectone. So it's an IT company that services and specializes in small business operations. And so the idea was to be able to scale what I do and be able to reach out and service more clients. Because there's so many hours in a day, and you only have two hands, right? So from day one, and maybe I'll kind of go to the strategy later on, but from day one, the idea was to hire and grow a team and build a team around me and be able to scale this. And so I started off with one employee, then two employees, worked my way up to 7 employees. And it just feels like we're just getting started. But we're about just under 7 years in right now. And what we noticed over the last couple of years, Andrew, is that the cybersecurity industry has been really booming. And the reason for that is because hackers on the other side of the fence are just loading every type of business and every individual with horrible stuff and attacking everybody. There's literally not a single person on this planet that is currently not under attack, unless if they're completely disengaged and disconnected from the internet. For us, and unfortunately, a lot of IT companies still haven't really been, brought up to speed, and they're just starting to wake up. But for us, over the last couple of years, the focus really has been not just IT. One of the main services under IT is cybersecurity, and we've really been focusing and honing on that to the point where it essentially outgrew our company. And outgrew our entire company, and now I spun it off into its own separate company. So I have now 2 companies, one by the name of Tectone that I've mentioned, and then my other company that just launched a couple months ago. It's called Cyber Unit. And the idea there is just, again, to focus and help small businesses and business professionals go about their business so that they can focus on what they do best, and they don't have to constantly look over your shoulder and think about who is coming at you. So we've had some success there. It's been just a couple months, like I said, but obviously now the industry and the economy, everything has just sort of turned upside down, but the need for cybersecurity is still there. Unfortunately, hackers are actually exploiting this very situation that you and I are dealing with, and everybody else is dealing with today, which is the whole remote work environment. Most companies are finding themselves unprepared and not ready for it, and hackers are loving this. This is a very good time for them, because they can now attack just about any home and expect somebody to be working on the other side of the router. And usually most people don't have any kind of security at home, and they're having a lot of success with that.
You've scared the crap out of everybody. I think you've got their attention. Thanks for that. Don't apologize. No, this is valid information, and like you pointed out, especially more so for remote workers, digital nomads, and virtual freelancers, because now we are starting to realize how we are more exposed. So you've already touched on some of your strategy there. It sounds like to streamline things, you had to spin up another company to keep your goals separate, but also streamlined and manageable. Is that fair to say, or?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, right on. So in the beginning stages of your success, what were you feeling at the time? What was motivating you to keep going? What kind of feedback loop were you exposed to that reassured you that you were doing the right thing?
So, I mean, the company was growing, obviously, a lot of referrals, a lot of word of mouth. Like we never really did any proper marketing, and most of the clients that we got and still get today, it's through word of mouth. You do a good job, you take good care of your clients, and then more will come. And we've been seeing that, and that's been very, very reassuring and rewarding. It's just nice to be able to grow organically. Of course, we probably would have grown a lot quicker if we invested more money into marketing as well. But that's been really, really reassuring, and kind of to your point there, and that's what's kept us going from the beginning.
Can you give us an overview of your business, like, and from the perspective of if you're running your business with remote staff, remote freelancers, remote employees? Are you structured in that way, or can you kind of give us an overview?
Yeah, so of course a lot has changed for everybody over the last 4 weeks or so. But for us, we have an office, so we actually have a physical office. We're based in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada, and so we have an office. Day to day, people come into the office. We do have some flexibility around working from home. Some staff members have kids and so on, and so we do offer the ability to work from home when you need to. And luckily, unfortunately for us, and hopefully most IT companies out there, we were ready for this. This didn't catch us by surprise, and cost us an arm and a leg to get to move from A to B. We actually had all the technology already in place. I like to travel quite a bit myself. I usually go for about a month a year. I'll go and travel somewhere. So I take work with me, very lightly, of course, but I am able to work and get everything done while I'm away as well. So we have, I can speak to the actual technology. That might be another question that you might have for me. But we did have all the right tools and technologies in place to allow everybody, within a split second to take all their work home and work from home, but not just work from home securely, which I think is very important. And a lot of people are not really thinking about that, and that's totally understandable. I mean, right now a lot of companies are struggling with this whole new concept of COVID-19 and everything around that. And so some companies obviously don't know where they're going to be in a few weeks or in a couple months. So, like, thinking about security, I could see why that's secondary. But I also feel, and from what I'm seeing and the feedback that I'm getting from customers and new customers that we're actually acquiring as we speak, I am starting to realize and see that people are now open to this new concept. They're realizing that this might be here for the next few months, and we just have to adopt, right? So we have very, very good tools to allow ourselves, like our staff members, but also our clients to be able to work from home, do it efficiently, and also do it securely, which is very important.
Okay, so I would love to dive a little deeper with you on these actual tips that you would give to someone who's working remotely. And I'm really sensitive to the fact that there are a lot of employees, entrepreneurs, freelancers that are forced to work from home for the very first time. So they're already very uncomfortable. They're nervous. They're scared. They have kids running around. They're probably dealing with distractions. And then you also have employees that worldwide are being told to work from home, and they've never worked from home before. They're more comfortable working in an office environment. So if you could touch on some specific tips and just a few things that come to mind that I'm not sure if you're able to address or not, but VPNs, if VPNs are necessary, or what concerns someone should be mindful of. And then password management. I know that is huge in your space. And then a third point would be the public Wi-Fi concerns. Is there a way to protect yourself when you're using public Wi-Fi? Like if you're at an airport or a library or something public, hopefully in most cases, someone will be using their private protected internet Wi-Fi at home. But I think you just touched on a little earlier that people are using their at-home routers, and they're also exposed to these hackers that are dealing with people that are not properly equipped and don't have the adequate protection. So those are the three things that I was wondering if you could touch on, and you might even have some other tips that you could share with us.
Yeah, those actually, you got it. Those are aspects that are very important, and I'd love to speak to those. So first of all, yes, people are working from home right now, and I touched on it a bit earlier on. Our home networks are not equipped for the kind of data that's being handled internally right now, and hackers are taking advantage of it. So most people nowadays have a very basic home wireless router that really acts as their firewall, and those type of devices are not built for this environment and the kind of attacks that we're sustaining and seeing in this day and age with COVID-19. And hackers, like I said earlier, they're fully aware of it, and this is like happy days to be a hacker. Your job has just gotten so much easier. I mean, they were they were pretty profitable before, but now they're able to cause some serious damage and do it a lot more easily. So there's definitely a big gap that needs to be closed, and people need to realize that when they're sitting at home, they almost need to. I don't mean to get people paranoid and overthinking, but it is a reality that we live in today. You don't know what's going on in your home network. There's a lot of internet, like Internet of Things and smart home devices that are probably plugged into your home router. There's your kids maybe playing around with their iPad and downloading different apps, and your partner and your maybe friends. At this point, hopefully your friends are not coming over because it should all be self-isolating. But the reality is that you have no visibility as what's happening in your network. So again, I don't mean to freak people out, but I always act as if a network like this is actually compromised, and you have to kind of have that mentality that something could be going on in your home network, and you need to be equipped and be working and operating in that mentality. So one way to mitigate that is to use what's called, and you touched that exactly, so a virtual private network, a VPN connection that allows you to essentially isolate yourself within your home network, or whichever network you operate within. So in this case, it's usually the home. And so if you're going to be working on sensitive stuff, if you're doing banking, anything that's sensitive or perhaps personal, definitely anything to do with intellectual property, you want to have your VPN turned on. And by doing so, you're essentially encrypting all your data within your network. And so if somebody's sitting in your network and trying to see and collect information and gather data packets and essentially be able to kind of intercept everything you're doing, if you have your VPN turned on, that will mask your data and create this kind of virtual private network around everything you're doing, and allow you to be able to operate safely and securely from your home. that's one way of doing it. There are many VPN vendors out there. I'm not married to any of them. In fact, most of our clients have offices with actual firewalls set up within their office, and so we're able to set up VPN for them. But I think a lot of your listeners, Andrew, are type of listeners that don't have an office with a firewall and don't have that that privilege of having a VPN set up by their IT. So there are some good options out there, but you have to be, just like anything else, you got to be very selective. You got to do your due diligence and research. Don't just go for, the free VPN. Definitely don't go for the free VPN. I will tell you that much, because there is no such thing as a free lunch, as we all know. And if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So somebody out there is definitely, if you're using free VPN, somebody's out there needs to make money on the other side. And their way of making money is to collect data and information about you, and either use it maliciously or sell it to third parties and make money that way. So using the free VPN should not be an option for anybody. But at the same time, even the paid ones, the $5-6 per month VPN options out there, just do a lot of due diligence. And I mean, you can read tons about it. Like I said, I'm not really married to any VPN providers, but privacy and security is very important for me. So there is one company, for example, called Proton. So they offer a product called Proton VPN. They're based out of Switzerland, so privacy is very important for them, and security. And so I like that as an option if you are going to go for a paid version. They do have a free version as well. It gives you lower performance. It's still okay, but if you pay, I think it's like $6 a month, that option does give you pretty good VPN capabilities and security, of course, and privacy. That's one option, and a lot of people have heard about VPN. People, for some reason, there's a misconception. I also want to just touch that really quick. There is a misconception about VPN and the usage around VPN. I talked to a doctor. This is before this whole COVID-19 thing went down. I had a conversation, just a friendly chat with a doctor, a friend of mine, and that doctor has mentioned to me that he doesn't have any security on his laptop, and he takes his laptop with him anywhere he goes to, to his clinic and wherever he goes essentially, and he has a VPN. So he was under the impression that he has security on his laptop because he has a VPN. And one thing, especially as a doctor, you have to keep in mind, and also for your listeners, if your laptop or your device gets lost or stolen, if it lands into the wrong hands, it's very easy for somebody to be able to pick it up, especially laptops. Mobile devices have better encryption nowadays, but laptops, both for Macs and PCs, by default, they're not encrypted. And so it's really important that you're aware of that, and that you know that anything that's on your hard drive, anything that you saved on your computer, it can be very easily extracted with like a $20 tool off eBay or Amazon that essentially can allow you to plug right into your hard drive and take out any data that's on it. So I do think that VPN is essential, especially when you're operating at home. And again, you don't know if your home network is compromised or not. But be aware that it's not enough. There is also a good alternative to VPNs. VPN, it can be a little bit of a pain in the butt for some people. And again, there's many options out there, and you never really know what's kind of happening on the other side. What the VPN vendor is really doing with your vendor and with your data. And we've also seen VPN vendors get hacked, because you gotta believe that because they have so much data and they handle so much information, they're also a big target. So we've seen like state actors. We've seen not to mention any maybe in this video, but we have seen big hacking groups and even countries go after VPN vendors to be able to tap into their environment and take all the data, intercept the data that they have kind of flowing through their systems and servers, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a VPN. So
I'm not sure. Is there a way to rate VPN services? Or is there any kind of way for a novice to just quickly evaluate who is better? Because I would obviously be interested to find out if a VPN has ever been hacked before I actually sign up and be a customer of theirs.
yeah, so I mean, the best way to see if it's been hacked is just going like Google News and just type the name of the VPN provider and hacked or just breached, one of those keywords, and you'll see what comes up. Even for Proton VPN, they just disclosed a vulnerability in their VPN system just a few days ago, and so it's very common, and that's the kind of stuff you want to see. You want to see that the vendor is actually on top of their environment and constantly looking for ways to improve and patching any backdoors or any vulnerabilities. And but for a novice or for someone that is not very technical to be able to evaluate the security themselves, they're probably not in the best position to do that. I will say there is one other alternative to VPN that I really like. It's sort of been a new concept that's been evolving over the last couple of years. A lot of our clients are already using it, and we use it ourselves. It's a phenomenal way to be able to kind of work remotely, work from anywhere, and do so securely. And that is called a virtual desktop. It's actually very neat, and it works really well. And for security, it's I would say that it's probably as good or even better than a VPN. And so picture this: like you open up your laptop or your computer in the morning, you log into your Mac or PC, whatever it is, and there's nothing on your desktop. There's no applications, there's no icons or any data on the computer, or very basic stuff maybe. Your computer itself almost serves as like a thin client. It has one icon that allows you to kind of launch your computer that's essentially in the cloud. So you can have like a Windows 10 computer that's, it's called virtual because it's in the cloud. It's hosted by, there's a couple companies that do it, or 2 or 3 companies. Amazon is a big one. A lot of people think Amazon, they think e-commerce, but Amazon actually has like a gigantic tech division that's almost as big as a lot of the other tech companies out there on its own, just that division. And they've been doing this for a while, and we like their product a lot. It's called Amazon Web Services. It's called Workspaces. So Amazon Workspaces, and it's great. I mean, you pay anywhere from like $35 to perhaps about $50. It depends, like the kind of specs that you need for your computer. If you're just very light user and you mostly just do email and mostly just do kind of cloud services and so on, and you don't need to install much on your computer, you're probably looking at about $35 a month, which will give you essentially a virtual Windows 10 machine that you can access securely from anywhere. So even if you're not on the go a lot and you're working from home, again, you don't really know what's going on in your home network, you could just use a solution like Amazon Workspaces and have all your data there in the cloud in an encrypted fashion. Anything that you do, any interaction you have with that cloud computer is actually it's almost like a virtual private network. That connection between your device, your home network, and your cloud computer, that whole entire connection is encrypted as well. And so I like that a lot. Microsoft offers a similar solution. They just launched it a few months ago. It is Microsoft, so maybe give it a few more months until it's fully baked and ready to go. But I don't know in terms of pricing. I'm not sure exactly how much they're charging, but I would say it's probably fairly competitive to Amazon. And there's Citrix as well. Most of your audience and people that are listening to this probably won't even want to look at Citrix, but Amazon Web Services or Amazon Workspaces as a product, the name of the product that is a great option. I love it. It works really well if you're working as kind of one person shop or an entrepreneur, but even if you have a team and you have to share certain folders with each other, or you have to have like a server, for example, it works really well because you can actually have your server in the cloud as well, and then have all the virtual kind of cloud desktops connect to that server. I might have lost you there. I know I'm trying not to get too technical, obviously, but in general, it can be very basic as well, and there are probably good tutorials on YouTube that can show you how to set it up. And if you're serious about this as well and you need help, you can get in touch with me or my team, and we'd be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, that's you're speaking my language, because one of the things that I like to talk about with brand new digital nomads and remote workers is to rely heavily on the cloud. Now, obviously, there's not a lot of traveling going on right now, but digital nomads are people that love to travel around the world. You mentioned you're in Vancouver. I'm coming to you from just outside of Glasgow right now. And I spent my first year as a digital nomad traveling to, I lost track. I think it was 10 or 12 different countries. And sometimes people lose their devices, their cell phone, their iPad, their laptop, or what have you, which is why it's so important to always save your work on the cloud so that you can just go buy another device and log in and you can still access all your work, because you can always go out there and make more money, but you can never get your time back, right? But here you are explaining it from the other side of things, the security side of things, which is a really important conversation to have these days because of what's going on right now and the risks that we're all exposed to, right? Is there anything that you would like to add on? Because again, we're not traveling a lot right now, so a lot of people are probably not using public Wi-Fi, but digital nomads, they like to use the Wi-Fi in the airport. Lots of people use Wi-Fi in airports. Are there any concerns there that you need to, that you should touch on? Or
Absolutely. Yeah, tons actually. I mean, I like obviously when you're at an airport, you got to realize that you're not alone. It's not a dedicated connection. You're surrounded by a lot of random people with devices that have gone through many things and configured by people that some might know what they're doing, other people don't. So a lot of devices at the airport even can be infected as well, and you just don't know what's going on in those networks. You don't know who they're. I mean, you'd like to think that they're looked after by people that know what they're doing, but there's a lot of horrible traffic flowing through those networks, and so you definitely want to isolate yourself when you're operating, at an airport. If you're working on an airport, if you're working from a coffee shop, I always like to just treat the network by default as compromised, and just have that mentality, because you just never know, and you can't afford to be hacked or infected. So I'd like to say, even at the airport, especially at the airport and places like that, make sure you're using VPN or a virtual desktop, and that'll keep you in good shape. And I like what you said there. A lot of people, if a lot of people kind of rely on their devices, but if your device gets lost or stolen, which can happen, especially if you're traveling a lot, it does happen. You just want to have peace of mind. You don't want to have to think, okay, what did I have on my desktop? Did I have my emails there? Like, do I need to start contacting my list of clients and, reporting or disclosing a breach, that kind of stuff. So having a virtual desktop is really neat because, like you said, you can just pick up any computer. It doesn't even have to. That's the other thing about it. A lot of people that are traveling and kind of global nomads that you're speaking to, they also are traveling and operating at a budget. And so when you have a virtual desktop, you can actually buy a computer that's half decent. It doesn't have to be fully specced out. It can be like a $500 laptop or computer. It could be a secondhand one as well. And so it really doesn't matter how much processing power the device itself has, because the processing actually happens in the cloud. And it's just so nice to be able to pick up any computer and connect to your virtual desktop and just kind of pick up from where you left off. So I like that a lot. You also asked me about password management, Andrew, and I think that's a very interesting topic and very important one. So a lot of people don't realize, unfortunately, this is kind of the reality, and I'm seeing this constantly again and again, both at the consumer level, but also at the professional level. People like to have, people like to be emotionally attached to their passwords. They like to have kind of that one password that they're just using everywhere. And, sometimes you don't even realize it, but you could be using one password for like 50 or even 100 different services. So some people might have like a variation of that password where, they'll kind of throw in like an exclamation point at the end or a couple characters. But for the most part, the average person will have kind of between 1 to 3 passwords. Now, the issue with that is that, again, hackers are smart. And so if one of those accounts gets breached, which happens a lot, we saw, for example, in 2016, a huge company, Dropbox. This can happen to any company. So Dropbox got breached, and so what hackers did is they took all the usernames and passwords in the database of Dropbox and essentially dumped it onto the dark web, which is probably a whole nother conversation. But a dark web essentially is a place where a lot of horrible things happen. But our focus is really on the cybersecurity side. So hackers go to the dark web to sell and to buy passwords and corporate accounts, amongst many other things as well. So we are seeing that a lot of hackers are using the dark web to be able to attack specific companies. So let's say if I want to attack company X, I can look up their domain on the dark web and find any mentions, any kind of breach accounts that are for sale on the dark web. And then all I have to do is pay a few dollars, buy those accounts and see what passwords are used for those accounts. And then I can try those passwords against, hundreds of different services like Gmail and Office 365 and banking, and the list goes on. And eventually, because of kind of what we're seeing, where people have one, two or three passwords, I most likely will be able to get in somewhere. So it's really important in 2020 and moving forward that you're managing your passwords securely and efficiently as well. So there are really good password management solutions out there. One, for example, that we like to recommend is called LastPass. There's also 1Password. There's some really good options out there. There's some free options out there. Don't go for the free ones, please. And do your due diligence. Like I said, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. I can't stress it enough. And security is very important, especially when it comes to handling your passwords. So go for a reputable option. I would say LastPass or 1Password. Dashlane is also a good option. But those are kind of the main solutions you should be thinking about and looking at. And what those solutions allow you to do, Andrew, is to be able to manage different password, like a unique password, but also a very complex password. It could be like a 16-character password that you wouldn't even try and physically memorize. You don't need to memorize it, but it allows you to just have different, unique, and complex passwords for all of your services online. And it's essentially your vault, your password vault. So it contains in a secure fashion, it encrypts and it stores all of your passwords and allows you to access your passwords on your phone, on your browser, on a computer, you name it. You can access it from anywhere in a very secure way. And it's pretty neat because it gives you a security score as well. Like LastPass will actually rate your passwords, and so once you start using it and you transfer your passwords into it, maybe today you're storing your passwords in your browser, for example. Some people are storing their passwords on their on the contacts and the mobile phone, or like on a notepad on their desk. I've seen it all, right? So once you get up and running with Password Manager, you want to start moving those passwords into LastPass or whatever solution you're using, and then it will actually give you a score and say, right now you got, let's say, 45%, and that's because you need to improve this password, and you're using 10 of these passwords here are duplicated, and so it will actually help you optimize and improve your security posture by improving and changing your passwords in a way that is very user-friendly as well. This might sound complicated, but I'd say, I've gotten many people into the systems. People that are younger, older, everybody gets it. And once you're on a system like this, there's no going back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's valuable information. Thanks for sharing that with us. I have experience with LastPass and 1Password, and using 2FA, two-factor authentication, and this is serious business. And I agree with you that these are serious concerns that people need to get better. And digital nomads, remote workers, we're more exposed than probably the average person at least in the examples you shared with us already, with someone who's going into an office space and is behind a firewall and behind all these added measures that their IT department is put into place if they're working for a large conglomerate. So really quickly, before we move on here, I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying this video, smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'm going to be making sure that I get more experts like Omer on this channel moving forward, because this is really valuable information. People are struggling right now. People are having a hard time adjusting to this new remote working world that they're being forced into. A lot of people are drawn to the digital nomadic lifestyle for the white sandy beaches and palm trees. And I think, unfortunately, the reality is more people are stuck in their bedrooms and basements and attics and wherever they can escape the children or escape the distractions to get their job done. And on that note, I want to quickly touch on something, because we're in a very strange time right now. It's April 2020 at the time of this recording. Lots of people are struggling. I was wondering if you have a time in your journey that was a low point where you were really struggling, where you were facing an obstacle or a challenge. You're an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are digital nomads and remote workers. Was there ever a time where you started to doubt yourself, where you thought, how could I possibly overcome this? And how did you stay the course? How did you stay the course and not try another option? Because I think a lot of people out there are certainly guilty of the shiny object syndrome. And, well, this isn't working, I'm going to try this. And that's not working, I'm going to try this. And then you fall prey of never really mastering anything, and you just jumping around from different option to different option. I know I've been guilty of that in the past. So right now, people are struggling. Lots of people are really facing tough times. I was hoping you could possibly pinpoint a moment like that in your journey, your career, and how you overcame that, and hopefully we can inspire some people that are struggling right now.
Yeah, so one moment actually specifically comes to mind. Where it was probably the lowest moment of my life. I started doing IT consulting, like I said, about 12 years ago, and a few years into it, about 3 years in, I'm an immigrant. So I'm not originally from Canada. Originally I'm from Israel. And I spent some time kind of between Israel and Canada. I lived in China, in Beijing, and Hong Kong. So I've been to many places, met many people around the world. And so I ended up in Canada. Immediately, I fell in love with it. I started going to school, graduated, and then I started working. So 3 years into my career, I had some issues and complications around my visa, my work permit, that is, in Canada, and actually, long story short, I had to shut down my business. I was no longer able to legally operate. I had to completely shut down, disengage, let go of what at the time was a profitable business. I was making decent money, living a good life, kind of post graduate life, and doing really well, and had some shiny objects, and essentially went from doing really well to essentially having no income, and having to eat into my savings, and it was pretty low moment in my life. I was actually thinking about maybe moving away from Canada. I just thought the whole system was backwards. Why does an entrepreneur that's actually contributing to the economy, and doing things legally, and hiring, helping small businesses, helping people in Canada, why do I have to shut down my business? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And that was the case for actually a year and a half. I had to put up with that for a year and a half. The only way I was able to stay in Canada was actually by going back to school. So I was never really a school person, but at that moment, I actually just shortly before that went down, I met my girlfriend, who is now my wife. And she was actually the reason why I decided to stay in Canada. I had definitely some thoughts in the back of my mind about kind of moving on to the next country, or going back home, but if something in me was clear in the fact that I should have probably stayed in Canada, and I'm glad I made that decision. It was really tough. I was living I was just living a very just budget life, you have to be aware that I went from like hero to zero almost. I was doing really well, had a nice car, like you said, all the shiny objects. And then I went to a point where I had to try and start selling different things that I owned. And I remember I got a gas card, just like $100 gas card from a client of mine that just, kind of wanted to thank me for my service, and for helping them out. And I remember going into a gas station and seeing if I can actually sell that. And that was like the lowest moment of my life. I've never had to go that low since then, but I definitely won't forget it. And I think at the end of the day, people will face difficult times and challenging times, especially now with COVID-19. It's a really difficult time, but ultimately it's temporary. You have to remember that life is long. This is just another barrier that you have to conquer and overcome. You will get through it. If you persevere, you will be worth it at the end of the day.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I think it's really important for people to focus right now on short-term pain, long-term gain. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. And I'm old enough to remember the last economic downturn back in 2008, and that didn't last forever. And this one's not going to last forever either. We are surrounded by a lot of negative news right now, but I think now more than ever, it's really important to lean on one another and really, call loved ones and stay connected with family and friends, and lean on each other for support. So I want to be respectful of your time, Omer, but I got two more questions for you. I'm curious if there is that brand new remote worker, that brand new digital nomad watching this right now, and we've already covered a lot in a brief amount of time. What are the initial steps someone should take to protect themselves? Because maybe they can't tackle the entire laundry list of things that they need to do, but what are the first things just to get that momentum, just to get things going? What's the first one or two or three things that they should do first, like the highest priority what would you tell that person?
Yeah, good question. So, like we talked about password management, that's whether you've been in business for years or you're just getting started, you have to get on a password management solution. It's not really it's no longer optional. You have to have one. That's one that I would definitely look into right away. Multi-factor authentication is very important. You want to make sure that every account that you have, especially your high-profile accounts, like your emails, your banking, anything that contain any database that contains your customer and customer list and any personal information, that should all be protected. Ideally, every account that you have should be protected with what's called multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. What that means is that you're signing into your account with your username and password, and then you get a 6-digit code that gets generated on your mobile device. You put that 6-digit code, which will change every 30 seconds to 60 seconds. You put that into the browser, and only then you can get into your system or your portal. So that's really important as well. Getting a good antivirus, anti-malware solution in place as well is super key. There is a lot of free solutions out there that are not necessarily going to cut. They're not going to cut it against the kind of attacks that we're starting to see. So do your homework there, do some due diligence, and make sure you get yourself secured with a very good antivirus, anti-malware solution. Be aware of phishing as well. Phishing, it's getting worse and worse, especially now when people are not working from the office, they're not behind the firewall. Hackers are exploiting it, and we're starting to see the level of phishing go up quite significantly. What phishing means is that somebody's sending you an email pretending to be a colleague, pretending to be a company that you might be using, like Dropbox or G Suite, Gmail, whatever. And essentially, they're trying to lure you into clicking a link and putting your email and password into a fake login page, which then allows them to collect your login information, breach your account, and cause a lot of damage. That's just one type of phishing email, or phishing attack that we're seeing, but we're seeing it a lot. And so just be very, very mindful of that, and maybe look at doing some training as well. There's a company I really like called Wizer, Wizer, that actually offers free phishing training. Very, very well put together and executed, and it's almost like gamification. It's really user friendly, and people tend to like it a lot. So I would check that out and do some phishing training as well to make sure that you don't fall, you don't get caught with the next attack. Those are the main things. Obviously, I mentioned looking at virtual desktop or VPN as well. Super, super important. And I'd say if you're doing all of that, you're probably in a much better place than most people out there today.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, you're dropping some serious bombs for remote workers and digital nomads alike. Thank you so much. And this is a question I love to ask because I think it really it's something to be mindful of. I'm curious how your definition of success has changed throughout your 12 years. What was your definition of success when you first started out as an entrepreneur versus what your definition of success is today?
Initially, for me, it was all about maximizing revenue. Trying to get as much money in the bank as possible, and not thinking about it as long term, and not thinking about the full picture. But that was, that's kind of what I paid attention to the most and focused on. That was my key metric when I first started off. And eventually, you wear down. You realize that just because you're making so much money doesn't mean you're profitable. That's one. And two, does it really give you a balanced lifestyle? And is it really all worth it at the end of the day? I think it's really important to pay attention to other aspects of life. Work and money is super important, but your well-being, your overall mental health as well, extremely important. And you have to leave some time for exercise. You have to leave some time for meditation, yoga, whatever it is that gets you going. It's really important to focus on that as well. So over the last couple of years especially, I made it a point to, carve out some time out of my schedule, actually physically, like block out time. I like to do it at lunchtime. Actually, I find that I wish I could do it in the morning, but I have kids obviously, and so I have other areas that I have to take care of in the morning. But I find that if I leave it for the evening, it just doesn't get done. So I like to go out at lunchtime for an hour, hit the gym, or go for a nice walk or a nice run, and just get out there and just do something. People overthink it sometimes. As long as you're doing something, even if it's 15 minutes, it's better than not doing anything. So I'd say money and revenue is still very important. but a balance is extremely essential, especially with everything we're seeing nowadays. It's very easy to go a little crazy these days, and just start losing it, especially if you're self isolating yourselves and you're at home alone. And so definitely pay attention to that, pay attention to your body, and invest in yourself.
Thank you for that. So to end things off here, if people want to learn more about you or Tectone, or if they want to connect with you, what would you suggest? Would you want them to connect with you over LinkedIn or a website, or how can people learn more about you?
I'm constantly sharing news and updates, and warning people about things that they should be aware of. And so if you're interested in learning more and want to keep up with what's going on and not have to do all the legwork for on your own, follow my business page, Cyber Unit, actually. So look up Cyber Unit on LinkedIn. We share a lot of tips and a lot of industry news and things that will really keep you out of trouble. So look up Cyber Unit on LinkedIn and follow us. And the other thing is I started the YouTube channel as part of this whole COVID-19 self-isolation movement. I am actually trying to get into content myself. So I have a YouTube channel. Look me up, Omer Segoly, on YouTube, and I will be sharing a lot of tips there as well.
Perfect. Omer, thank you so much. I am going to make sure to include all the links that you just mentioned in the description below, as well as all the resources that you've mentioned. You've shared a wealth of information with us on this call. Really appreciate your insight, which is obviously a culmination of, what did you say, 12 years of IT experience. Cannot thank you enough. You certainly made a couple points that I need to take a closer look at as well. Even though I think I'm doing quite well, I think there's still some room for improvement. So cannot thank you enough for joining us. I know there's a lot of brand new remote workers and digital nomads that really appreciate your input today. So once again, if you're still with us here at the end of the interview, make sure you smash that like button and leave us a comment below. You can leave a question. Either myself or Omer would be happy to answer. And also make sure you go visit Omer's YouTube channel as well. But other than that, I will see all of you at the next one. Don't forget to own the day and make it yours. Take care.